You're standing barefoot in a field at dusk. The soil is warm. It smells alive. There are worms moving beneath your feet. Bees are humming somewhere in the goldenrod. Chickens scratch near a fence line. You breathe in, and the air feels clean. Now picture the same land stripped bare. No birds, no insects, just rows upon rows of chemically dependent crops. The soil no longer smells like earth. It smells flat, dead. Somewhere between those two images lies the story of American agriculture. And somewhere inside that story lies your body. Tonight we're talking about health. Not just your health, the land's health, the animal's health, the water's health, and the invisible web that ties them all together. Because everything is related.
Welcome, witches, pagans, heathens, spiritualists, and anyone interested in living sustainably. This is
Old Ways, New Days, where the old ways meet the good dirt.
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Nell. And each week we explore the sacred art of living close to the land. From compost to covens, chickens to charms,
We're reclaiming self-sufficiency, seasonal living, and ancestral wisdom.
whether you're stirring your cauldron or your soup pot,
This is a space for wild-hearted folk walking the homesteading path with intention, magic, and muddy boots. Welcome back now.
how's it going, Kayla?
Good, it's now March.
What?
I know.
Already?
Already.
Dang, that was fast.
I know.
It's like did I even sleep?
I don't know, did you?
I don't know. It's just been exhausting.
So I wanted to do an episode that kind of breaks down how the agricultural system in America has kind of gone kaput, yes. And, you know, the way the government is changing things like the food pyramid and, you know...
Are sweets on top?
Are sweets on top? No.
Dang it.
I know.
How about coffee? Is coffee on top?
No.
Because that's is my food source, is coffee.
Yes.
Coffee.
But now apparently they want to plaster not safe for human consumption on basically every processed food.
Well, that's because it's processed.
It is processed and probably not safe for human I mean, I will say, you know,
Some in moderation, yes, but no.
everything in moderation. Like you can't only eat Oreo cookies.
Darn it! Well, it's a good thing I don't like Oreos.
Oh yeah, chocolate chips.
Okay, that one I can. Those are my go-to. Chocolate chip cookies.
Your nerd ball.
Oh, my
thingies.
nerd clusters.
Yeah, your nerd
clusters.
clusters.
Those are so good.
They are so good. Oh, so bad. Oh, so unhealthy.
I have a bag at work.
So, wanted to talk about how it's changed and why, you know, homesteading is
Essential.
and it's kind of a smack in the face of
Take that.
yes, of corporative agriculture. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, health it's everything, and
How it's related?
yes, everything is related, and health is no exception. There is no separation. The land, the crops, the livestock, and your body are wrapped in an interconnected web. Our ancestors understood this instinctively. Pagan agricultural calendars revolved around soil vitality. Indigenous traditions treated skin. Oh my god.
Yes. Treat that skin.
Indigenous traditions treated land as kin. Early American homesteaders measured wealth not in stock portfolios, but in the depth of their topsoil. Industrial agriculture changed that relationship, and it changed for a reason.
So at the end of World War II, the United States had a problem. Factories that had been built to produce explosives, chemical weapons, and wartime compounds were suddenly sitting on massive surplus capacity. Ammonium nitrate, a key component of bombs, was being produced as industrial scale. So were synthetic nitrogen compounds. So were
Organophosphates.
oh, Atlanta woman. So were organophosphate nerve agents.
Organophosphate.
That's what I said, isn't it? So were organophosphate nerve agents. War had ended, but the factories were still running. Chemical manufacturers needed a peacetime market, and agriculture became that market. Ammonium nitrate, once packed into artillery shells, was repurposed as synthetic nitrogen fertilizer. Organophosphates, developed from nerve gas research, became insecticides. Later, herbicides like 2,4-D, originally researched during wartime chemical programs, were commercialized for weed control. By 1974, glyphosate-based products such as Roundup would enter the market and eventually dominate American crop production. Their narrative was simple. Chemicals increase yield. Yield feeds the world. Therefore, chemicals are progress. And in fairness, yields did increase. But something else happened too.
Synthetic fertilizers deliver nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium directly to crops. This is often notated on a package as NPK. They stimulate growth quickly, visibly. Taller corn, faster wheat, bigger soybeans, but they do not feed soil biology. Compost feeds bacteria, fungi, earthworms, mycorrhizal networks, carbon structure. When soil is treated as an inert growing medium rather than a living ecosystem, it becomes dependent on inputs. Each year requires more fertilizer to produce the same yields because organic matter declines and microbial diversity shrinks. And when soil life declines, mineral exchange weakens. Research comparing mid-20th century produce to modern varieties has shown measurable decreases in certain micronutrients, including magnesium, zinc, and iron, in some crops. While many factors influence this, soil depletion is part of the conversation. We did not just industrialize farming, we industrialized fertility itself.
So, pesticide use accelerated dramatically in the decades after World War II. By the late 20th century, the United States was applying hundreds of millions of pounds of pesticides annually across agricultural land. Many compounds were later restricted or banned due to environmental persistence and toxicity concerns, yet new formulations continuously replaced old ones. Residue exposure in food, runoff into waterways, impacts on pollinators, and potential endocrine or neurological effects in humans remain areas of active scientific debate and study. But here is what we know for certain. When farming becomes chemically intensive, ecosystems simplify. Monocultures replace diversity, weeds become resistant, insects adapt, so stronger chemicals are applied. It becomes a cycle of escalation.
As crops become chemically managed, livestock systems change too. Industrial animal operations rely on feed crops grown with synthetic fertilizers and herbicides. Animals confined to dense conditions are often administered antibiotics, not just for treatment, but historically for growth promotion and disease prevention in crowded systems. This pharmaceutical buffering allows unnatural density. And while regulations have shifted over time, the legacy remains, a system built on intervention rather than ecological balance. When the land requires chemical correction, when animals require pharmaceutical correction, it should not surprise us that human bodies increasingly require medical correction. This system did not emerge accidentally. It was built intentionally. In the post-war boom of the 1940s and 1950s, when chemical capacity sought a new frontier, and that frontier was the American field.
So when we disrespect the land our food is grown on, it does not retaliate dramatically. It withdraws vitality. And our bodies feel that withdrawal. The United States leads the developed world in rates of chronic, non-infectious diseases, including obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and autoimmune conditions. According to data from organizations like the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 6 in 10 U.S. adults, yes, you heard me, 6 in 10 U.S. adults have at least one chronic disease, and 4 in 10 have 2 or more. Chronic disease is complex. It cannot be blamed on one thing, but diet and food quality is central.
So let's talk about our animals. The rise in concentrated animal feeding operations, also known as CAFOs, accelerated in the 1970s and 80s. Instead of diversified family farms where manure was cycled back into soil, animals were concentrated by thousands in confined spaces. In CFO systems, manure is stored in massive lagoons. Antibiotics are routinely administered to prevent disease in crowded conditions. Waste runoff can contaminate groundwater. Airborne particles from manure lagoons have been linked to respiratory issues, including higher asthma rates in surrounding communities. Compare that to how manure was handled historically on family farms. Straw bedding layered with manure, sometimes called a lasagna method, was composted over winter. By spring, it transformed into rich fertilizer that rebuilt soil organic matter. Nothing wasted, nothing toxic, everything cycled. CAFOs break that cycle. They separate animals from the land that would naturally absorb and transform their waste, and when natural systems are broken, pollution increases in water, air, and bodies.
But we have done this differently before. During World War I and later in World War II, Americans planted victory gardens. By 1943, nearly 40% of nation's vegetables were grown in home and community gardens. Communities grew food locally, children learned to plant, families composted, food was seasonal and fresh. Victory gardens weren't trendy, they were patriotic, they were practical, they were community resilience in action. So why did they disappear? Well, after World War II, industrial food production scaled up. Chemical companies needed peacetime markets. Supermarkets expanded. Convenience became king. Growing your own food became something poor people did. And slowly, stewardship became consumption.
Which is sad.
Very sad.
It can be tempting to believe that this is simply how farming works, that large-scale chemical dependency is inevitable, that CAFOs are necessary, that monoculture is modernity. But when we widen the lens, we see something else. The United States is one of the largest agricultural producers in the world and one of the heaviest users of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. Our system prioritizes yield per acre, uniformity, export volume, and commodity crops like corn, soy, and wheat. But not all nations farm this way. Across parts of Europe, stricter pesticide regulations have phased out or limited chemicals still widely used in the U.S. The European Union has banned or restricted dozens of active pesticide ingredients over environmental and health concerns. Some countries have adopted national soil strategies focused on biodiversity restoration and regenerative transitions. In countries like Japan, small-scale farming remains more common in certain regions with diversified plots integrated into local food systems. Traditional rice paddies function not just as food production sites, but as ecological wetlands, supporting frogs, fish, birds, and microbial life. In Cuba, following the collapse of Soviet imports in the 1990s, fuel and chemical fertilizer shortages forced a nationwide shift toward organic and urban agriculture. Cities like Havana developed intensive community garden systems that supplied large portions of fresh produce locally, not because it was trendy, but because it was necessary. Even within the global south, agroecology movements have grown, blending traditional ecological knowledge with modern science to restore soil carbon, diversify crops, and reduce chemical dependency. This is not to romanticize other nations. Every country wrestles with suits. My God.
Take a drink.
Every country wrestles with food security, economics, and policy pressures. But it does remind us there is no single way to farm. The American model, industrial, consolidated, chemically intensive, is a choice. One shaped by policy, subsidies, wartime industrial capacity, and corporate consolidation. It is not destiny, and perhaps that realization is powerful, because if it is a system built by human hands, it can be rebuilt by human hands. Other nations are experimenting with regenerative transitions. Small farmers worldwide are reviving polycultures, rotational grazing, seed saving, composting, and agroforestry. The old ways were never fully erased, they went quiet, and now globally they are stirring again.
So there is an old belief, older than industrial farming, older than supermarkets, older than nation states, that the land is not a resource. It is a relative. In many ancestral traditions, soil was not dirt. It was sacred matter. It held the memory of bones, ash, fallen leaves, spilled milk, prayer, blood, rain, and time. To tend soil was to participate in an ongoing covenant between the living and the dead. And somewhere along the way, we broke that covenant. Not in one dramatic moment, but slowly. When fertilizer became a product instead of compost, when animals became units instead of beings, when yield became more important than vitality, when speed outran season. But here is what the old ways teach us. The land does not seek revenge. It seeks balance. When soil is stripped, it does not shout. It thins. When biodiversity collapses, it does not scream. It quiets. And our bodies echo that quieting. We feel it as fatigue, as inflammation, as disconnection, as hunger that food does not satisfy. Because nourishment is more than calories. It is relationship. When we eat from land that has been chemically forced into productivity, we participate in that force. When we eat from soil built with compost, time, and reverence, we participate in restoration. And here is the ancestral truth that industrial systems cannot erase. You are not separate from the field. The calcium in your bones once lived in rock. The iron in your blood once lived in soil. The water in your cells once fell as rain. Every meal is a ritual, whether we acknowledge it or not. So what does stewardship look like now? It may look like composting in a 5-gallon bucket on an apartment balcony. It may look like supporting a regenerative farmer. It may look like planting herbs in a windowsill. It may look like asking hard questions about where your food comes from. It may look small, but small, repeated acts rebuild soil. And soil rebuilt over time rebuilds communities. During wartime, victory gardens proved that ordinary people could grow nearly half of a nation's vegetables. That wasn't nostalgia. It was collective power. Imagine what stewardship could look like now. Not driven by war, but by wisdom. The old ways are not about going backward. They are about remembering forward. Remembering that health begins beneath our feet. Remembering that fertility is not manufactured, it is cultivated. Remembering that the web of life is not a metaphor, it is literal. And if everything is related, and it is, then every act of care toward land becomes an act of care towards yourself. The land remembers how to heal. The question is, do we?
Right? Well, there you have it, folks. So remember, like, share, listen on all your favorite podcast platforms.
Follow.
Share with your friends.
Ask questions. Give us input, advice.
And listen to us next time.
Throw your ideas our way. Because I think we're running out.
I know. We're not even through a year.
Right? Well, we're definitely not running out. But we could definitely use some more ideas.
Yes. So, glad to have you. We love you guys. Thanks for listening.
Till next time.